Today we will be discussing the processes that allow organisms to grow and develop. Reproduction involves cellular processes that are necessary for growth and development. Today we will review the basic types of reproduction and do an overview of the process of cell division. By now you should have read the article titled All Systems Go and completed the questions that go along with it. You need to do this to better understand the importance of cell division. If you've not already done so, read the article and answer the questions. Now that you've read the article and you understand the importance of cell division for reproduction, growth, and repair, let's take a moment to review the two types of reproduction, asexual and sexual. Asexual reproduction is a process by which single-celled organisms produce offspring that have the same genetic material. This means that a single parent produces offspring that are exactly alike. There is no genetic difference between the parent organism and the offspring. An example of this is binary fission. Binary fission is a type of asexual reproduction that occurs in single-celled organisms in which genetic material is copied and one cell divides into two identical daughter cells. Both bacteria and yeast reproduce this way. Here's a diagram that illustrates binary fission in a prokaryotic or bacterial cell. As you can see, it begins with a single-celled organism. This organism makes a copy of its chromosome or DNA, the cell grows and divides, and in the end produces two identical cells or cells with the same DNA or genetic information. Here's a micrograph of a real unicellular organism reproducing through binary fission. As you can see, the process of reproduction is almost complete. On your sheet of paper, there is a small space to draw a simple illustration of binary fission. Take a moment to draw this illustration to help you remember the process of binary fission. Your picture might look similar to this one. This picture shows that the cell has almost divided into two new identical cells. Pause the video to give yourself enough time to draw your own picture. Budding is another form of asexual reproduction that takes place in multicellular organisms. Budding is when an organism grows apart off of its main body, and this new growth eventually breaks off to become a new organism. Hydra are examples of organisms that can reproduce this way. Hydras are freshwater relatives of jellyfish. Some of you may have seen these under the microscope when we completed our pond water lab. The picture on the right shows a real hydra carrying out asexual reproduction by budding. As you can see, two buds, one on the left and one on the right, have formed off the side of the original hydra. If you will look at the diagram on the left, it shows how the buds will develop. First a bud forms. The bud then grows its own tentacles. It increases in size and eventually breaks off of the parent. The offspring is genetically identical to the parent. Take a moment to draw a simple illustration of budding to help you remember this process. You might choose to create a simple drawing similar to this one. Pause the video to give yourself time to create your own illustration. Fragmentation is the last type of asexual reproduction that we will review. Fragmentation is a form of asexual reproduction where a new organism grows from a fragment or piece of the original parent. Each fragment develops into a mature, fully grown individual. Examples of organisms that can carry out this type of reproduction are starfish and some fungi. Starfish can regenerate through the process of fragmentation. If you break a starfish in half, each new half will become a new starfish. Each half will be genetically identical to the other. Fungi, like this mushroom, can also reproduce through fragmentation. The hyphae of this mushroom can be pulled apart and each strand can grow into a new mycelium. Take a moment to draw a simple illustration of fragmentation to help you remember this process. Your picture might be that of a simple starfish. Pause the video to give yourself time to draw a simple illustration. Let's review the three types of asexual reproduction. Can you remember the three processes that we discussed? If you answered binary fission, budding, and fragmentation, then you are correct. Sexual reproduction is the second type of reproduction that we discussed. It is a process in which male and female reproductive cells combine to form new offspring with genetic material from both parents. Offspring have genetic material from each parent, which create offspring that is not identical to either parent. In other words, offspring produced during sexual reproduction are a genetic mixture of both parents, meaning that they have half of their DNA from their mother and half from their father. Animals are not the only organisms that can reproduce sexually. Plants and even fungi can reproduce sexually. Fungi produce two mating types. When these two mating types fuse underground, they can join together and produce two different types of cells that fuse together to create a zygote. We learned earlier that a zygote is the combination of an egg and a sperm cell. In fungi, zygotes become spores. Spores then develop into new fungi. Before we take a look at the cellular processes involved in reproduction, let's take a moment to review asexual and sexual reproduction by discussing the advantages and disadvantages of each process. Let's start by looking at the disadvantages of each process. As a result of asexual reproduction, all offspring are genetic replicas. There is no genetic variation except for mutation. Asexual reproduction does not allow organisms to adapt to changing environments. Think about a population of rabbits. If all of the rabbits had the same genetic information, that would mean that they would all look alike. Let's just say that all of our rabbits had genes that code for white fur. This would be a great adaptation in the Arctic. But what if temperatures on Earth continue to rise? The climate of the Arctic is going to change. The snow will melt. The white fur of our rabbits is no longer going to be an adaptation. What's going to happen to our population of rabbits who are all genetically alike? If you guessed that they might become extinct, then you would be correct. Asexual reproduction does not allow populations to adapt to changing environments very quickly. Sexual reproduction has its disadvantages also. During sexual reproduction, two parents are required. This means that the process takes much longer to complete than asexual reproduction. Therefore, the population cannot grow as quickly. This means that when resources, like a large food supply or living space, become available, the population can't grow as quickly to be able to take advantage of the new resources. Take our population of white rabbits, for example. The Arctic has become warmer, therefore more plants are available to eat during the growing season. But the rabbits lose this food supply to other populations because they simply can't reproduce enough young rabbits to eat all of the available food. Both asexual and sexual reproduction have advantages. Let's take a look at those advantages now. In asexual reproduction, only one parent is needed. This means that the organisms can increase in number rather quickly. This can allow the population to take advantage of certain environmental conditions. Think back to the population of rabbits. If this population could reproduce asexually, then they can increase in number rather rapidly to take advantage of new food sources or new living space. Sexual reproduction has the biggest evolutionary advantage. Since two parents are involved, offspring are all different. Organisms are able to adapt and evolve to a changing environment. Sexual reproduction is advantageous in a less desirable environment. Think back to our population of white rabbits. The environment is constantly changing. Sexual reproduction allows for a wide variety of traits in organisms. Those members with the most desirable traits to live and continue reproducing in a certain environment will be those that survive to reproduce. In nature, rabbits and other animals come in a wide variety of colors with unique patterns that are suited to certain environments. So now that we have reviewed the two methods of reproduction, let's consider how living organisms grow and develop after they have been produced. Have you ever thought about how your fingernails grow, or how your hair gets longer, or how a flower gets taller, or even how the mycelium of a fungus reaches its food source? Where does the new material for all of this growth come from? Cell division is the process that allows organisms to do all of these things. Cell division is a process by which a cell divides into two or more cells called daughter cells. Your body is constantly making new cells to replace old ones. This is how your hair grows, how plants get taller, and how hydra bud and starfish regenerate, and how egg cells and sperm cells are created. Cell division might seem like a simple process in which a cell simply divides in half, but it requires precise steps in order for the new cells to receive the correct DNA and function properly. The precise steps that cells carry out to ensure that each new cell receives an exact copy of DNA is called mitosis. Mitosis is one of the steps of the cell cycle. Mitosis is division of the nucleus in eukaryotic cells in which each cell receives a copy of the original chromosomes. Chromosomes are organized structures of DNA and protein that forms in the cell nucleus during cell division. Homologous chromosomes are chromosomes with matching information. When your cell prepares for division, it makes an exact copy of the original DNA strand. The DNA is then organized into homologous chromosomes, or chromosomes with matching information. Each new cell receives a set of these matching chromosomes. Remember, DNA is found in the nucleus of all eukaryotic cells. Normally, the DNA is not visible within the nucleus. It is only when the cell prepares for cell division does the DNA become organized into chromosomes for easy separation among the two cells. Cells must copy the genetic information in the nucleus before it divides into two nuclei. Therefore, you have homologous chromosomes, two chromosomes with matching information. Take a look at this diagram. The left side illustrates what happens during mitosis, which is used to create new body cells for growth and repair. In mitosis, the DNA is copied and condenses to form chromosomes. Those chromosomes line up along the center of the cell and are pulled apart to opposite ends. The cell membrane pinches inward and two new cells are created. These cells are genetically identical to the original cell. The right side of this diagram illustrates meiosis. This is the type of cell division that is used to create gametes, or egg and sperm cells. It begins the same way as mitosis with the copying of the DNA. This time, chromosome pairs line up along the center of the cell. The pairs are separated and two new cells are formed. These two cells then divide again. The result is 4 cells that have a half a set of chromosomes. These cells are said to be haploid. 4 haploid cells are created. These haploid cells become gametes, either egg or sperm cells. This concludes today's lesson. To better understand the processes of mitosis and meiosis, visit the website below. It gives a guided animation of both processes.